Let's talk about the coronavirus. What the hell is going on? Why would we manifest this crap? And are we going to be okay? I'm Melody Fletcher, and I explain the law of attraction and the technology of reality in a way that actually makes some freaking sense. And today I want to talk to you about the coronavirus or COVID-19 crisis. What is it? Why is this happening? And most importantly, what can you do to keep yourself safe? Now, if this is the first time that you're watching one of my videos, let me just set the stage. This message is for those who at least resonate with the idea of the law of attraction and that you create your own reality, which means that you're interested in this topic and the idea of it feels good to you. You're looking for a technical, energy-focused explanation of what's going on and a better feeling, love-based perspective. You can get the fear-based perspective pretty much everywhere else, so we won't be covering that. Thank you very much. If all of that sounds good to you, then you're in the right place. I'm going to be answering 3 big questions in this video. Why or how did we manifest the situation? What can we do during this crisis to not only feel better, but actually benefit from the whole thing? And how is this whole situation serving us? Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Clearly, something big is going down right now. People are scared. Some people are panicking. And those who aren't in panic mode are definitely confused. Now, obviously, those of us who understand at least a little bit about reality creation will experience this time differently than those who believe that everything, especially the bad stuff, just happens randomly. Or even worse, that events like this are a kind of punishment. And that's the first belief that I want to dissect because it can sneak into even the most practiced deliberate creator. I've spent the last few weeks coaching and having tons of conversations with my students, clients, friends, and colleagues around the world. And the question I've heard most often, either directly stated or when we dug into the energy, was, what did I or we do wrong? In other words, there's still a belief that when something negative happens, it's in response to us not having focused positively enough, or maybe we missed something we should have fixed. But this is a total misunderstanding of how reality creation and the law of attraction work. What's happening in the world right now is not a punishment. There's no judgment in the system, and so there's no punishment and no reward. Now, in January of this year, I published a video where I explained that 2020 was going to be one hell of a year. I predicted that there was going to be a bit of volatility, especially for those people we term muggles, those who are not yet awake and aware of their power. And this, what's happening now, is exactly what I was talking about. So now that we have a more specific volatile manifestation to dissect, what exactly is happening right now? And why am I not at all panicked about it? If you've been following my work for a while, you'll have heard me talk quite a bit about the awakening of humanity and the evolution of humans. But just in case you have no idea what it means, let me explain. We humans are not on this planet by chance. We're not some kind of biological accident that's just trying its best to survive in a harsh, unforgiving landscape. We're actually here by choice. And what we're accomplishing on this earth is nothing short of phenomenal. We are here to raise the energy of the planet, to take it from an incredibly dense, dark, low vibration to a light, flowing, high vibration. Or to put it another way, we're taking the planet from a fear-based energy to a love-based one. This is no small task, as you may have noticed, and there are many, many phases to this kind of project. For most of humanity's time on Earth, we've been at war. We've been so afraid of each other that we've been willing to kill and even torture each other just to mitigate that risk a little bit. We've been locked into a cycle of attack and retaliation. And while winning a war, and I put that in air quotes because there are no winners in a war, while winning a war may feel somewhat empowering, in other words, attacking someone feels better than being attacked, the willingness to engage in war at all always comes from a place of powerlessness. When we first started to walk across the Serengeti or whatever, basically in the very, very early days, we had to fight for our survival. Literally. We didn't just fight the animals and the elements, we fought each other. We became very territorial and wanted to defend our territories. Now, animals do this as well, only you may notice that most animals will only defend the amount of territory that they need in order to support themselves. Once an animal or group of animals have secured that territory, They don't go out and then try to conquer other territories. Well, we humans did just that. Why? Because once a group of humans is no longer defending their territory in a bid for survival, that fear doesn't just go away. It continues to manifest, and that often leads to conquering behavior. After all, if I can control a territory and everyone in it, I'm even safer, right? Maybe I'll get rid of all of those who might hurt me, stand against me, or disagree with me in any way. Basically, anyone with even a slightly different point of view. If I can homogenize the world, or if I can make sure that everyone thinks and behaves the same way, or at least if I can at least disempower those who are different from me in such massive ways that they can never fight back, then I can be safe, right? The problem is that no amount of money, territory, or fake power can make us feel safe. Fake power is the power we get by dominating others. It's not the same as real power, because real power can't be taken away from you, nor does it rely on you disempowering anyone else. You see, as long as you have a belief that you're not safe, as long as you're still in survival mode, you'll never be able to accumulate enough riches, wealth, or dominion over others to make you feel safe. In fact, the more you try to mitigate this fear in this way, the more it'll just amplify how scared you truly are. And that'll lead to even more and even bigger attempts to control everyone and everything around you. Now, you might think that I'm only talking about the 1%ers here. I'm not. I'm talking about pretty much everyone. Because even those who've been disenfranchised, those who don't have a ton of money or influence, have this fear. It just doesn't manifest as an attempt at global domination. Anytime you see an us versus them attitude, it comes from fear. This can be blatant, as in racism and prejudice, or it can be more subtle, as in classism. Have you ever noticed how pretty much everyone needs to find someone to look down on, even if it makes no logical sense? Anytime you see controlling behavior, whether it be overprotective parents, bossy micromanaging employers, jealous and controlling spouses, governments trying to control way too many aspects of their people's lives, or whole countries trying to control one another, it comes from fear. Anytime you see war, there's fear. You might think that today's wars are all about greed, but that's not the underlying issue. Greed is a reaction to the feeling of scarcity, not having enough. And if a belief of scarcity is present, it doesn't matter how much you have, you're never going to have enough to feel truly safe. You can witness this in almost humorous ways right now as people are hoarding more toilet paper, of all things, than they can use in the next 2 years. So that's how we've been living pretty much since the beginning of humanity's time on Earth. Now, as you may have noticed, we've lightened up quite a bit since the beginning. Things have gotten better. We don't smack each other over the head with clubs anymore. We don't settle every disagreement with a fist fight. We've moved out of the paradigm of the strongest always wins, where he with the most brawn gets to make all the rules because clearly the one in the tribe that can move the biggest rock is also going to be the smartest and the best decision maker, right? In other words, the biggest bully always wins is no longer true, at least on an individual level, if not on a nation-to-nation one. We no longer view people like women, minorities, and children as property. We've become calmer, wiser, and less afraid all around when compared to the past. Of course, all of those behaviors still exist, but they're no longer widely practiced and accepted. So hopefully, I've made a good case for the idea that as humans, we have evolved quite a bit over the millennia. We may be far from perfect, but we're better. Now, as I said, this evolution of becoming wiser and less afraid has been going on since the beginning. And for a long time, it was slow. Very slow. In fact, centuries could go by without anything really fundamentally changing. If you wanted to move a giant round boulder, getting it going would be tough and require a ton of effort. You might spend a long time and a lot of energy getting that boulder to move an inch. But once you get a bit of movement, more movement becomes easier. You can build on the momentum no matter how small. And if you keep at it, that momentum will build and the boulder will eventually begin to roll on its own. It may even become an unstoppable force. Well, for most of our time here on Earth, we've been trying to get that damn boulder to move, and it's been moving more and more. First, and for a long time, very slowly, but then faster and faster. In 2012, we crossed a threshold where the boulder of evolution, if you will, began to roll on its own. And that's when things have really begun to speed up. Now in 2020, it's become an unstoppable force. And that means it's getting volatile. On an individual level, when you're being called to your power, to remember who you really are and what you're truly capable of, and you don't go, things get really volatile as well. You might even manifest a large, seemingly very negative event, like losing your job or getting really sick. Some people have car accidents and have to stay home for weeks while they heal. Why does that happen? Well, it's not to punish those people. It's to help them wake up. Negative manifestations serve two purposes. They show us what we're not dealing with by bringing in a representation of a belief we have that's really not serving us anymore. In other words, it's a disempowering belief rather than an empowering one. So negative manifestations represent a belief, or more specifically, how that belief makes us feel. The second purpose of a negative manifestation is to facilitate the letting go of or shifting of that limiting belief. That's right. Our negative manifestations are perfectly designed as opportunities for us to get more empowered. They always contain the solution. So, what exactly does the coronavirus represent then? Well, it's not so much the virus that's our manifestation, but our experience of it. In other words, our manifestation isn't what's happening, but how it feels to us. On a global level, this experience is a representation of powerlessness. The same fear that's been dogging us since the beginning of time. Something outside of ourselves and beyond our control can come and attack us. And there's really nothing we can do about it. What better representation of utter powerlessness could you think of than a virus? Now, at this point, I want to let you know that I'm in no way trying to negate how scary and painful this is. People are dying after all. The awakening process is not an easy one, which is something that I personally don't think has been explored or even admitted enough by many teachers out there. Waking up is a bitch. It's worth it, but it's a bitch. It's like turning off the morphine drip and having to feel all the pain, limitation, oppression, and powerlessness that's been there all along, but which you weren't fully aware of. It's not fun, and it's definitely not easy. But let me tell you a secret. Two secrets, actually. One, you're so much more powerful than you know. Yes, even you who's been studying this stuff for years. And while it can get difficult, once you become a bit more aware of your power, it gets easier and easier. In fact, the first moments of awakening are the most painful of all. It never gets that bad again. Because once you see all the crap in your reality that you weren't aware of, but which you were nevertheless reacting to and suffering from without even being fully aware of that, you can actually do something about it. The second secret is that each of us creates our own reality. So even though we're all participating in this global manifestation together, precisely how we experience these events is actually up to each of us. And that's what I want to talk to you about for the rest of the video. You see, even though we're all participating in this event together, our experience is always an individual one. And how you're experiencing this event, how it feels to you, and how scary it is for you is directly related to how empowered you already are. In fact, this coronavirus scare will push any and all powerlessness buttons in you, which you weren't aware of yet, no matter how small or hidden they may be. That's why you'll see even some really advanced teachers succumbing to fear right now. This is a very challenging time. That being said, challenging doesn't have to mean horrifying. In fact, challenging doesn't have to be bad at all. Keeping the big picture that this is really all about our awakening and empowerment can help a lot. But it's also important that you don't somehow negate or even suppress how you feel. Now, if your understanding of the law of attraction is that you're only supposed to think positive thoughts an understanding you certainly didn't get from me, this may sound a bit confusing to you because what if how you feel is afraid? What if you're angry? What if you're sad? What if you feel totally powerless right now? Well, I can't really give you the full explanation of why you need to feel your feelings in this video, or it'll be 2 hours long, but you can find a ton of resources on my website, melodyfletcher.com, or my book, Deliberate Receiving, Finally the Universe Makes Some Freaking Sense, published by Hay House and available on Amazon. Or you can check out my oodles of videos on YouTube if you want to get a more nitty-gritty explanations of how it actually works. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you have a basic understanding of this topic, and I'm just going to give you my recommendations on what to do during this time of unrest instead of also offering an explanation on why these things are a good idea. I know that this isn't normally my style. I like to explain everything in nitty-gritty technical detail, but right now I feel inspired to keep it as practical as possible. So here are my recommendations. Do not suppress your emotions. You feel how you feel, and you get to feel how you feel. In fact, if all you do is give yourself permission to fully feel your emotions and reactions, you'll come out of this so much faster and unscathed. Or less scathed. Maybe a little bit of scathing. Be sad. Be angry. Be afraid. Feel these emotions and watch what happens. They may simply leave, or you may get some insights. If nothing happens, you're holding back and you're not allowing the feeling. Believe it or not, this is pretty much the most important thing that you can do. Stop watching the news. If you must, check in with the AP service or some online news site once a day max. Get the headlines, but don't bombard yourself with fear-based messages. You acclimate or entrain to whatever you subject yourself to, so do your best not to subject yourself to doom and gloom. This goes for your family and friends too. Filter your social media. For example, if you're part of a high-vibing face group, you can just go in there instead of looking at your feed first. If a relative always makes you feel like crap, you don't have to talk to them. Hey, self-isolation to the rescue. Enjoy self-isolation. This is actually a natural part of the awakening process. I've always called it cocooning. You isolate for a time to make it easier for you to choose your perspective deliberately, rather than just following the status quo or acclimating to those around you. This is a time to slow down or stop, to take stock, to let your inner dialogue come up, to feel your emotions, check on your goals and priorities, and get clarity. This is no different when it happens to one person or to millions at the same time. Cocooning or self-isolation serve the purpose of getting us to slow down so we can see what's really going on. We're being given a chance to get off the hamster wheel and take stock. Use it. If you see this as an opportunity you can enjoy, it'll also help you negate the fear that the government is somehow descending into martial law, which is just another powerless fear that I've heard some people express. Focus on the big picture. A big positive picture. What can help with this is when you open yourself up to this actually being a massive catalyst for change, and then you look for evidence of that. I'll give you some examples of this in part 3 of this video, but do your best to focus positively. When negative emotions come up, feel them. Let yourself express them constructively, meaning you hurt no one and you don't make anyone responsible for you feeling better. So usually that means by yourself. The rest of the time, however, focus as positively as you can. Connect with others. Sure, you can't leave the house, but we have Skype and FaceTime these days. Why not chat with people online? Have lunch or dinner together. Play games with each other, video games, or even board games. Just because you're physically isolated doesn't mean that you have to be disconnected. Be a leader. Seriously. If you're watching videos like this, you're most likely feeling a lot more positive about this than most of humanity. So if you can, shine your light so others can see it. This doesn't mean that you have to go out there and preach or convert anyone. You don't even have to talk to people about your beliefs, unless you want to. Being a leader in this instance is first and foremost about setting an example, a high vibrational example. Be the steady one, the one who isn't afraid, or at least not as afraid. And no, you're definitely not crazy if you're not super afraid right now. Notice how most people won't actually argue with this positive point of view anymore. They want to believe it'll be all right. Keep in mind that you cannot fake this. If you're super afraid, go off and deal with it by exploring the fear. But if you're finding yourself feeling good, don't be afraid to let others see that too. Okay, so now that I've given you some recommendations, let's get into the final part of this video. I mentioned earlier that every negative manifestation contains the solution within. And if you know what to look for, you can already see the evidence of this on a global scale. In case you don't know what to look for, or you just want someone to tell you some stuff that'll make you feel better, I thought I'd share a few examples with you. Negative manifestations usually force us to make changes that will really benefit us, but which we've been resisting due to fear. Often we'll only change when it becomes too painful not to. And I do mean we. I played out the same patterns and smacked into the same painful walls for years before I finally woke up and realized that the way I was approaching my life just wasn't working for me. Now, these changes come first and foremost in the form of perspectives we need to change, how we're looking at and approaching things. This has to do with our motivations, our fears and what we're assuming we have to do to mitigate them, and our identities, or what we often call our egos. Heady stuff. So in a grand general sense, since we know that this virus manifestation is mainly about powerlessness and survival, we can look for evidence that people are acting and reacting in ways that are not fear-based or not survival-based. Examples such as healthcare and support workers are out and about every day working tirelessly for others. This is not a survival trait. If they were coming from a place of survival, they'd stay home. But they don't. People in Spain and Italy, having spontaneously agreed on a time of day, are spending every evening singing and clapping for those healthcare and support workers. They're celebrating them and showing their gratitude. Israeli and Palestinian doctors have begun to work together to combat the virus. Nothing like a shared enemy to get people together, The violence in the Gaza Strip, while not gone, is noticeably down. Individuals, not governments, are making peace, talking to and helping each other. Do you really think this collaboration will just disappear from those doctors' minds when this crisis is over? More people are working from home than ever before. Companies and managers that were highly resistant to their employees staying home, mostly because it represented a loss of control, are suddenly bending over backwards to make that happen. In the US, we're talking more about universal healthcare protections for all, so healthcare can become a right instead of a privilege reserved for those with enough money. Yes, there's a long way to go, but we're moving in the right direction. More and more light teachers, who are traditionally often quite timid, and for good reason, are coming out of the woodwork and stepping into leadership roles. The environment is getting a huge break, and air quality all over the planet is improving due to much less travel and shipping. People all over the globe are coming to the conclusion that their governments no longer represent them, the people. Now, this may seem like a no-duh statement to many of you, but it's a devastating realization for many. For years, we've been putting our kind of blind trust in politicians. We trusted them to get on with their jobs while we got on with ours. Now, it can be quite harsh to realize that you've been horribly betrayed by the people who were supposed to look out for you. Like when your security company ends up robbing your house or your accountant embezzles money. And again, this is a necessary and positive step, even if it's painful. We are swinging from blindly trusting our representatives to not trusting them at all, so we can eventually have a healthy relationship with our politicians where we hold them accountable and they have integrity. We're going from one extreme to the other so we can find a balanced middle. We're getting a real glimpse of just how connected we all are. A virus doesn't care about borders and licensing agreements. It's time for us to face that we're all in this together, that we're all humans on this planet, and that artificial divisions don't really serve us. Again, this is part of the us versus them paradigm that's breaking apart. And that's a really good thing because we're strongest when we work together. Forced self-isolation is allowing people the time and space so they can step off the hamster wheel and become aware of what's really be going on in their lives and how they truly feel about it. Basically, it creates the space in which we wake up. This is one of the most important and effective things that we can do to facilitate personal growth, and it's being facilitated across the globe. Those are just some of the examples that I've gathered that show how this catalyst is actually affecting us. Now, as it became clear to me that I had to do a video on this topic, I became aware of two questions or desires. The first was that people wanted to know what the hell was going on, how this could happen, and what, if anything, we were doing wrong. Nothing. The second desire I heard was a desire to connect with other people, like-minded people, especially around this crisis. It can be hard to stay positive and empowered when everyone around you is super negative and none of them get this whole reality creation stuff. So I've decided to do something about that. I've decided to create a free Facebook group open to the public and filled with loads of high-vibing, happy, shiny puppies who not only get this work, they live it every day. I'll be asking my whole team and my student and client community to participate as well. They've been benefiting from having access to our private Facebook groups, but I'd like to extend this support out to anyone who needs it during this volatile and difficult time. Now, if you watch this video all the way through, you'll definitely want to check out that Facebook group, so you don't have to go through this alone. The link is in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, or just below the video if you're on the blog. There are a lot of us out there, and we can support each other through this. No one needs to be strong on their own. I'd also like to ask you to share this video and the Facebook group with anyone else you might know that would benefit. Any like-minded peeps who you know could use some validation and support. Because we all can right now. Together, we can tap into that unstoppable force. We can become the beacon of light that this world needs. We can become so steady that we can ride these waves like surfers instead of getting the crap beaten out of us by this energy. 2020 was always going to be volatile. This crisis will pass, and it's likely that there will be more global manifestations. How we experience these events depends on how empowered we already are, which means we don't have to personally be affected by anything that's going on. As ugly as this time is, we are in the midst of a powerful process of awakening, and waking up is a bitch, but it is freaking worth it. I hope this video was helpful to you. I'd love to hear what you thought, so don't be afraid to leave me a comment below. Until next time, I'm sending you smooshy cyber hugs, and thank you for bringing your light to the world.